39-year-old Carl Mintz, a Michigan man, was arrested after he allegedly made a post on social media threatening violence towards Palestinian Americans in Dearborn, a city near Detroit that has one of the highest populations of Arab Americans in the U.S. Mintz is facing one felony count of threat of terrorism and a misdemeanor count of malicious use of a telecom device. Police began investigating last Wednesday when they received an anonymous tip about a post that Mintz allegedly made online. He was arrested in his home in nearby Farmington Hills on Thursday. As part of his bond condition, Mintz was assigned a GPS tether device and was banned from possessing weapons and using the internet. This is according to David Harris Law and Crime. Dearborn Mayor Abdullah H. Ahmed Hamoud said in a statement, "Threats of violence against our community will not be tolerated," and that his office was pleased to see the charges were filed. Listen, we gotta talk about this. I mean, this is not just about international politics or geopolitical politics. This is about the climate that America has borne over the past, right since Donald Trump, since 2015. We've seen the threats go up against elected officials. I myself currently am moving back and forth between different properties that I own because I was doxxed for tearing down a Confederate monument and people constantly threaten me. So I think this idea that this is just related to one accident, and I don't want to make small what's happening, the war between Israel and Hamas over in the Middle East, but this hate has been fermenting. We had the FBI tell us last year that the greatest threat to America right now is the rise in white terrorism. And this is no different or cannot be separated from that. Waz, what do you think about that?
I think a lot of people have been very thoroughly propagandized, to be honest. Just turn on the news and look at the news coverage and look how skewed some of it may be. Biden's own press secretary, she described any calling for restraint or, a ceasefire or peace to be repugnant. She said it would be repugnant to suggest that there should be a ceasefire and an end to the mass deaths that we're seeing in that part of the world. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised when people who are so thoroughly propagandized on a damn near daily basis lose their minds and are just filled with hate for certain groups. I can't say that I'm surprised by that. Just turn on what we see in mainstream media. It's not a message of peace and reconciliation. It's not a message of, how do we figure out a way to bring forth a ceasefire between the Russians and the Ukrainians? How do we find a way to bring forth a lasting peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians? It's all about war and we're sending this much aid to Ukraine, which realistically, guys, is just a wealth transfer to the weapons manufacturers in this country. I promise you, if the weapons that Ukraine had to use during that war were made in China, we would not be writing $50 billion checks to them. I promise you, it is American private companies that we just basically give government funds to in order to fund those wars, and that's why you see that posture, and that's why you see that rhetoric, and that's why that's why I'm telling you, I'm not surprised when people are constantly bombarded with this propaganda, believe these kind of crazy things.
To us, they seem kind of crazy, but when you're only getting your information from space, like say Fox News, that seemingly go along with any conspiracy that Donald Trump is spewing or anybody on the MAGA right is spewing, you understand why the police chief of Dearborn, Chief Issa Shahan, stated that the department take all threats seriously because we live in a climate where you can't. And because they take all threats seriously, they're currently unaware of any other further threats, but they're still increasing the number of police that are, patrolling the city at places of worship and other public safety and security issues. Like, this is ridiculous that you have to increase. We are in a state where we're increasing police presence at churches. churches and other places where people pray and worship. This is where we find ourselves, especially in a space where demographic states, again, that Dearborn has one of the largest Arab American populations in the United States, accounting for 42% of the city's population in 2021. The city elected its first Arab mayor. I think, in a space where you just got arrested, in a climate in the country where we see the demonizing of the FBI and other Justice Department that are investigating white nationalists, it becomes no shock that people are arresting folk while Israel and Hamas are raging on in the Middle East, right? Just this week here in this country, the arrest of a 71-year-old man in Illinois, the landlord, Joseph Zuba, who stabbed a woman and her 6-year-old son because they were Muslim, stabbed them. The boy, Wadia Al-Fayoumi, died while his mother suffered serious injuries. And Zuba is facing a murder charge while the DOJ is opening a hate crime investigation. I hate to say this, y'all. A hate crime investigation is not going to bring back this 6-year-old who was stabbed just because of what he believed. And a lot of the time we forget that children are born in situations. So this child was killed because of his DNA. He didn't make a choice at 7 to 6 years old to be a Muslim. He is a Muslim because his mother was a Muslim, and this man killed him for that reason. So he was killed for being born, and we don't say it that manner. And it's at this point, it's too late to try to charge this man with a hate crime. Yes, he should face murder charges, but what we should be charging is America and her silence for hate crimes, because we already knew, the FBI already told us that this was the biggest threat to Americans. So every Muslim, every Black person, every minority right now is at threat because of white nationalism.
The most depressing part about all of this, Mondale, is the fact that we did this already 20 years ago. We went through 9/11. We had those two absurd wars, absurdly expensive on the one hand, and even worse, 500 million plus dead Iraqis and Afghanis in the process. We stayed in Afghanistan for damn near 20 years. About 7 hours after we left, the Taliban took over, all the good we did over there. And, not to mention all of the insane investigations and surveillance of fellow Muslim Americans here in America, just all the hate that we engendered towards these people for nothing. And we learned nothing from it. We're just repeating the cycle again now by, painting Palestinians as murderous, horrible, monstrous people, the masses of them who deserve, the most brutal repression imaginable to man.